500,000 tons of steel, moving at 16 knots, and there are no brakes. The captain has cut the engines 25 kilometers from port, and the ship won't stop for another 20 minutes. For the captain on the bridge, this is threading a floating city through the world's busiest shipping lanes. Every course correction takes minutes to register. Every decision made now will only show its consequences 5 minutes later. You don't steer this vessel. You negotiate with it. Each TI-class ship carries 3,166,000 barrels of crude oil, over 500 million liters, enough to supply South Korea's entire oil consumption for a full day. One ship, 1 day's worth of fuel for 51 million people. The Exxon Valdez spilled 11 million gallons. A TI-class tanker holds 4 times that amount. One hull breach, one grounding in the Persian Gulf, $20 billion in cleanup costs, 17 million people affected, hundreds of thousands of fishing jobs gone overnight. Gone. This is the TI-class ultra-large crude carriers, the largest ships ever built by displacement, and the story of why the world constructed them, proved they worked, and then decided never to build anything like them again. Until 1956, every oil tanker was designed around a single constraint. It had to fit through the Suez Canal. The canal was the shortest route between the Persian Gulf and European markets, and for decades, tanker size was a canal problem, not an engineering problem. Then the Suez Crisis closed the canal. Overnight, oil had to travel 12,000 extra miles around the Cape of Good Hope, and ship owners discovered something fundamental about the economics of moving liquid in bulk. The larger the vessel, the cheaper the cost per barrel. Dramatically cheaper. A tanker twice the size doesn't cost twice as much to operate. It costs roughly 30% more, while carrying 100% more cargo. The larger an oil tanker is, the more cheaply it can move crude oil. Before supertankers, oil was expensive to move. The distance and the cost were the enemy, and the answer was size. The first generation of ultra-large crude carriers was built in the 1970s, all single-hulled. Most were scrapped prematurely or proved uneconomical in partial loads. The economics only worked when the ships were full, and the oil market doesn't always cooperate. By the 1980s and 90s, ULCCs had largely disappeared. Then came the Exxon Valdez, March 1989. 11 million gallons of crude oil into Prince William Sound, Alaska. The images of oiled coastline and dead wildlife forced a reckoning the industry had been avoiding. New international regulations mandated double hulls on all new tankers. Single-hull vessels were to be phased out entirely. The problem, nobody had built a ULCC in 25 years. An entire generation of shipbuilders had never worked on vessels this large. The knowledge base had to be rebuilt almost from scratch, and then applied to a design requirement, the double hull, that had never existed at this scale before. 380 meters in length, 68 meters in beam, drafts so deep that when fully loaded, 8 stories of ship sit below the waterline. Longer than the Empire State Building is tall, wider than a soccer field. The deck area spans roughly 25,000 square meters, larger than 4 American football fields combined. A single 9-cylinder diesel engine, 2 stories tall, running at 76 revolutions per minute. So slow you can count each combustion stroke, producing 50,000 horsepower. The propeller alone stands 10.5 meters tall, taller than a 3-story building, machined to precise tolerances to avoid vibration at those low speeds. Fewer than 40 people control this vessel, 1 person per 12 million liters of cargo. The entire crew could fit comfortably in a large conference room. Adding a second hull to a vessel this size meant adding at least 20% more steel. More weight, less cargo capacity, higher construction costs, all on a vessel whose economic case depended entirely on moving as much oil as cheaply as possible. The engineers at Daewoo Shipbuilding and the Hellespont Group's naval architects had to offset the weight penalty without sacrificing the safety case. The solution was speed, Typical ULCCs cruise at around 14 knots. The TI class was designed for 16.5 knots laden, faster than anything in its class. Quicker voyages meant higher cargo turnover. Higher cargo turnover offset the heavier hull. The economics worked, but only just. The inert gas system completed the safety picture. Oil vapor is explosive. Without it, every empty tank space becomes a potential bomb. The system pumps oxygen-depleted gas into the vapor space of each tank, keeping oxygen levels below 5%, below combustion threshold. The white-painted upper hull reflects Persian Gulf sunlight to control cargo temperatures. Multiple redundant systems layered on top of each other on a vessel that could not afford a single catastrophic failure. All four ships, TI Oceania, TI Europe, TI Asia, TI Africa, were built at Daewoo's facility in Okpo, South Korea, and entered service between March 2002 and April 2003. Four vessels, $700 million of steel and engineering, delivered in just over a year. In 2009, the Norwegian tanker SKS Satilla was transiting the Gulf of Mexico when it collided with a submerged oil rig, underwater infrastructure that should not have been in its path. A direct impact with a submerged steel structure at sea in a vessel carrying crude oil. In a single hull tanker, this tears the hull open. The cargo enters the water. The cleanup begins. The SKS Satilla did not spill any oil. The double hull worked exactly as designed. The outer hull absorbed the impact. The inner hull protected the cargo. The system that had added 20% to the vessel's steel weight, that had required engineers to redesign the economics of ULCC operation from scratch, had done precisely what it was built to do. The data supports it at scale. Double hulls reduce oil spill incidents by 90% in grounding situations and by 75% in collisions. Not a theoretical improvement, a structural one. Off the coast of Yemen, anchored in the Red Sea, sits a different kind of supertanker story. The FSO Safer was an older ULCC converted to a floating storage unit, a vessel that, like the TI class, held enough crude oil to dwarf the Exxon Valdez. Unlike the TI class, it had been sitting without maintenance for years. The Yemen civil war had made servicing it nearly impossible. Rust was advancing through its hull. Salt water was infiltrating its cargo tanks. The inert gas system designed to prevent explosion in the vapor spaces above the oil, the same system built into every modern ULCC, had failed. The assessment from maritime experts was direct. It could leak, spill, or explode at any time. The Safer contained 4 times the amount of oil spilled by the Exxon Valdez. It sat in some of the most environmentally sensitive waters on Earth, above coral reefs and near coastlines that 19 million Yemenis depended on for food and income. A structural failure or explosion would have been the largest accidental oil spill in recorded history. This is the argument for the TI class made concrete. The Safer was what happens when a ULCC ages without the engineering discipline that went into the TI vessels. No double hull, no redundant safety systems, no inert gas protection that actually functions. A vessel that had outlived its maintenance regime, sitting full of crude, slowly becoming a catastrophe waiting for its trigger. The international community eventually organized an emergency operation to transfer the Safer's cargo to a replacement vessel. The operation was completed in 2023. The Safer was towed away and scrapped. The TI class was designed so that an operation like that would never be necessary. As of the 2020s, no new ultra-large crude carriers have been ordered. The TI class wasn't just the first ULCCs in 25 years. They may be the last ULCCs ever built. 2 of the 4 have been converted to floating storage units off Qatar. Vessels that once moved 500 million liters of oil across oceans, now sitting stationary in the Persian Gulf. Their propellers still. The Seawise Giant, once the largest ship ever built. Bigger even than the T-Wing class, was scrapped in 2010. Giants don't live forever. The economics that created the TI class have shifted. Oversupply, changing trade routes, the slow restructuring of global energy away from a small number of massive source points toward a more distributed picture. The conditions that made a 400-meter tanker the rational answer no longer exist in the same form. Whether that's progress or loss depends on which problem you're solving. The TI class solved the problem it was given. It moved oil cheaply, safely, and at a scale no vessel before it had managed. It proved the double hull works under impact. It set records that have not been broken. And then the world stopped building them. The question worth asking, given everything you've just seen, the scale, the safety engineering, the FSO safer sitting full and rusting off Yemen, was the decision to stop building right? Or did the world give up on the safest large-scale oil transport ever designed just as it was being proven? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more stories of engineering that changed how the world moves and why the world moved on, the next one is already waiting.